Good morning, students. Welcome back to our English class. Today, we are going to learn something very interesting and very exciting. Today, we are going to learn a humorous story. And why the story is humorous? The reason is we are going to learn in the story the companionship between animals and human life. So yes, student, for this you will have to travel along with me to zoo, but while going, we will have to take our grandfather along with us. So yes, this is a new lesson, lesson number 6 from New Voice, and the name of the lesson is Traveling with Grandfather's Zoo. Now, one more good thing about this particular lesson is, student, this lesson is written by Ruskin Bond. And we all know Ruskin Bond is one of the famous writer and poet. As we know, Ruskin Bond was born in the year 1934. He was an Indian author of British origin. His various novels, poems, short stories, and essays displays his love towards nature. That means he was actually very much fascinated and attracted towards the nature. Particularly, his one most important short story was The Dust on the Mountain. So, this particular story tells us more about his love towards nature. And you know, student, when he was 17 years old, he wrote his first novel, The Room on the Roof. And he published, that means he released his novel when he was 21 years old. So that means he started writing, a lot of stories and poems at a very young age. Now, as we know, he was one of the famous writer, so he was awarded with many things. He was also awarded with various awards like Sahitya Academic Award, Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan Award as well. There are few well-known work of his, The Night Train at Duly and The Blue Umbrella. So as we know, this particular writer has actually taken us to a different world. Now, in this particular story, this narrator is actually narrating the story for us. So what we are going to do is we are going to learn something different today. As I promised, let us go through the lesson. Now, before we could go through the lesson, let us understand the main characters of the story. So here we go. Now, which are the main characters of the story? The main characters are grandfather, grandmother, narrator, narrator's aunt, and the name of aunt is Mabel. And we have few animals over here. Parrot, name of parrot is Popeye. Small tiger, name is Timothy. One squirrel, named Chips, and one python. So now let us start and we will understand what this entire story is all about. Yes, students. Now, what we will do is we will read the lesson thoroughly and understand each and every sentence from this particular lesson. So, let's start the reading. All aboard, shrieked Popeye, grandmother's pet parrot, as the family climbed aboard the Lucknow Express. Now, students, over here, all aboard means giving a warning or stating something that please come in fast. This particular message is especially for the passengers or who travel by bus, ship, or train. So, this is a warning that please come inside fast as this particular train or bus is going to get boarded very soon. So, as we know that they are going to, the entire family was planning to go to Lucknow. So this was a Lucknow Express. So the parrot Popeye was really excited and he was shrieking at the top of his voice. Shrieking means shouting loudly at a high pitch and giving a warning that please to come in for all the passengers as the train was about to get boarded. We were moving for some months from Dehra to Lucknow, and as grandmother insisted on taking her parrot along. Now, over here, students, Dehra means it's Dehradun. So they were traveling for few months from Dehradun to Lucknow. And yes, of course, grandmother insisted that she wanted to take her pet along with her. Grandfather and I insisted on bringing our pets too. Now, I over here means the narrator, Ruskin Bond. So, grandfather and Ruskin Bond, they also decided if grandmother is carrying her pet along with her, then why can't we? So, they also had a very teenage tiger, that's grandfather's tiger, it was a pet, and a small squirrel which belonged to narrator. So, as I said, there are two keywords over here. All aboard, that's a warning call made to the passengers of a bus, ship, or train. And shrieked means uttering a word at a very high pitch. Now, let us go to the next slide. But we thought it prudent to leave the python behind. Oh, so they had one more pet, and that was a python. In those days, trains in India were not so crowded and it was possible to travel with a variety of creatures. Now, as we know, Ruskin Bond is talking about, the olden days incident. So, this is a very old story. And in olden days, people used to travel along with their pets as well. So, no one actually used to take an objection. So, yes, over here, the narrator is stating that we left the python behind. Over here, prudent means they were avoiding the risk because they thought that if they bring the python, then there might be a big risk because python is, of course, dangerous. So, they thought that the people may get scared, the passengers will not like it, and that is the reason they thought that python should be at home. Now, as he said, in olden days, trains were, quite comfortable to travel along with the creature. So yes, in those days, they can carry their creatures as well as the pets along with them. Grandfather had decided to do things in style by traveling first class. So, as we can see, grandfather was a very stylish grandfather, and he always said that if I want to travel, I will travel by first class. And I hope you all know what is a first class. First class is a special kind of a compartment which has got a different style of berth wherein you can sit comfortably. So we had a four berth compartment of our own. So this particular place belongs to the person who is actually, taking this ticket of first class. So, since it was a family of grandmother, grandfather, the narrator, and also the pet, so this is how they thought that we will travel in first class because we have our pets along with us. So, they had taken one first class compartment with four berth compartment for their own. And Timothy, that's a tiger, had an entire berth to himself. So Timothy was actually very happy as he got his own space, so wherein he can actually enjoy. So this is how you can look at the picture. We can see the entire family over here. It's grandmother, grandmother's parrot, then narrator and narrator's squirrel. Then we have grandfather and Timothy as well. If you look at Timothy, yes, see, Timothy is very much comfortable and he is actually enjoying his space. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. Later, everyone agreed that Timothy behaved perfectly throughout the journey. So, what I mean by behaving perfectly, that means he was well obedient and well disciplined. So, even the guard admitted that he could not have asked for a better passenger, no stealing from vendors, no shouting at coolies, no breaking of railway property, and no spitting on the platform. So, here, what the narrator wants to say is Timothy was actually not harming anyone. Timothy was behaving very nicely in the entire journey, and he was not stealing anything from the vendors, he was not shouting at coolies, no breaking of railway property, and no spitting on the platform. So, actually speaking, the narrator was also very happy. The reason is the guard also admitted that Timothy is a well disciplined and well behaved passenger throughout the journey. All the same, the journey was not without incident, and before we reached Lucknow, there was excitement enough for everyone. So, students, this means that throughout the journey till Lucknow, all the passengers are going to be excited as a lot of incidents are going to take place with this family and their pets as well. So, let us be ready to see what are the incidents which are going to take place. Now, to begin with, Popeye objected to vendors as other people poking their hands in through the windows. Now, the parrot Popeye didn't like when the vendors were poking their hands inside the windows or the passengers were poking their hands outside the windows. So, before the train had moved out of Dehra station, he had nipped two fingers and tweaked a ticket inspector's ear. So, since he didn't like it, what he did is before the station could move out of Dehra station, that is Dehradun station, he had actually nipped two fingers. That means he had nipping means to bite. So he had actually nipped two fingers of one of the vendor and he tweaked a ticket inspector's ear. Tweaking means twisting and pulling. So yes, he did this all with vendor as well as one ticket inspector also. So now let us see what happens further. No sooner had the train started moving than Chips, my squirrel, emerged from my pocket to examine his surrounding. Now there was one more pet squirrel, yes, and name of squirrel was Chips. So before I could stop him, he was out of the compartment door, scurrying along the corridor. Now, Squirrel actually popped out from the pocket of the narrator, and suddenly Squirrel started, scurving along the corridor. Scurving means rushing along the corridor. So now it's going to be very excited as all the pets and grandmother, grandfather, and the narrator, they all are going to be together and something interesting is going to happen. So let's see what happens. Now, as we all know, that squirrel loves peanuts. So now let's see what Chips has actually done in the train. Chips discovered that the train was a squirrel's paradise. Almost all the passengers having bought large quantities of roasted peanuts before the train pulled out. So Chips was actually very happy, and Chips thought that this was a paradise for to enjoy the roasted peanuts which was given by the passengers to Squirrel. So Squirrel was actually enjoying this particular moment. So he had no difficulty in making friends with both children and grown-ups. And it was an hour before he returned to our compartment, his tummy almost bursting. That means the squirrel was actually loving the peanuts, the roasted peanuts given by all the passengers, and he thought that this was the right moment to make friends with the children as well as the grown ups. And within some time, his tummy was almost about to burst in the compartment. The reason is this means Squirrel was eating a lot of peanuts over there in the train. Understood? Okay, now let us go through the next slide. I think I will go to sleep, said grandmother, covering herself with a blanket and stretching out on the berth opposite Timothy's. It's been a tiring day. Now, grandmother thought that, I'm tired with the whole day. So now I want to sleep. So she took a blanket and stretched over herself, and she was about to sleep to the opposite berth of Timothy. Aren't you going to eat anything? Asked grandfather. I'm not hungry. I had some soup before we left. You too help yourself from the tiffin basket. Now, grandfather asked, before you sleep, why don't you eat something? So, grandmother said, don't worry, I'm not hungry at all because before we could leave, I had some soup. So you and the narrator, that means Ruskin Bond, can actually pull the tiffin basket and eat something. Grandmother dozed off, and even Poppy started nodding, lulled to sleep by the clackety clack of the wheels and the steady puffing of the steam engine. That means now grandmother actually, she almost slept, and even her pet Poppy also was about to sleep. Now, there was a lot of noise in olden days, when the train used to run. So the wheel used to make a lot of noise. So the noise of the wheel was actually sounding like some kind of a lullaby to grandmother. Now, over here, lulled to sleep. That means lulled, the meaning is something which makes you to go to sleep. So, we say lullabies and all. That means some kind of a song, a sweetness before we could sleep for the day. So yes, this is what it means. And in olden days there used to be steam engine. So it seems that the steam is that is there is a steady puffiness in the steam engine. So the engine is also making a lot of noise, that is puffing. So yes, but grandmother was actually, she was really enjoying this, and she actually went off to sleep. Well, I'm hungry, I said. That means the narrator said, I'm hungry. What did Granny makes for us? Now, the question was, Granny had made something before she could leave. So the answer was, yes, she has made some ham sandwiches, boiled eggs, a roast chicken, gooseberry pie. It's all in the tiffin basket under your berth. I tugged at the large basket and dragged it into the center of the compartment. Now, yes, they decided that since they were hungry, they wanted to take out the tiffin and eat something. But the question was, what's there in the basket, and what is the, you can say the various uh, dishes that Granny has made. So Granny has made some ham sandwiches. She has also brought boiled eggs, a roast chicken, gooseberry pie. Now, the narrator actually tugged at the large basket. Tugging means pulling. So, the narrator pulled the large basket and dragged it into the center of the compartment. That means narrator dragged this particular basket towards himself to open and see what are the various you can say the varieties of dishes Granny has kept in the basket. The straps were loosely tied. No sooner had I undone them than the lid flew open, and I let out a gasp of surprise. Now, over here, student, as the narrator said that he wanted to pull the basket, so the moment he tried to pull out the basket, he could realize that the straps of the basket was quite loose. And when he tried to do that, the lid of the basket actually flew up, now flew open. Now he was actually surprised. Why he was surprised was, in the basket was grandfather's pet python, curled up contentedly on the remains of our dinner. So what the narrator over here wants to say is, he could see the python in the basket. Yes, the same python which they had a plan to keep at home safely. But now, to their surprise, the python was in the basket. Python was curled up contentedly. Contentedly means happily. Now, why Python was happy? The reason is, in the basket, grandmother had actually kept a lot of things for dinner. And what was that? Do you remember the list? Yes, it was ham sandwiches, boiled eggs, roast chicken, and gooseberry pie. So don't you think that python must have definitely ate something from the basket? So yeah, yes, this was the actually dinner for the entire family. So yes, it was actually a surprise for the narrator Ruskin Bond. Now, students, we are going to stop here. This is the part one of for today. We are going to continue with part two and part three simultaneously. Now, what we are going to do is after part 1, yes, you are going to fill the worksheet properly and you are going to send it across online. After you do this, what you need to do is you have to go through this entire lesson again. I mean, till part 1. The reason is you have to discuss this particular story with your parents without making even a silly mistake. Yes. So, let me see how you're going to explain this story to your parents. Now, we are going to meet very soon for part 2. So, I hope you all must have enjoyed this lesson till here. And yes, don't forget to fill your worksheet and send it across. Thank you so much, students. Take care. Bye bye.